She laughs, she posts, she moves on, or at least that's what it looks like on the surface. A new hairstyle, a night out, maybe even someone new by her side. But beneath it all, behind those curated moments and half-hearted smiles, there's a thought she can't quite escape. You. She told herself she let go. She convinced her friends she's fine. But the mind doesn't lie in silence. And in those quiet, unfiltered moments, late at night, in the car alone, when her phone lights up but it's not your name, she thinks about you. More than she wants to. More than she'll ever admit out loud. In this video, we're going to unpack exactly why you're still on her mind, even if her words or her silence say otherwise. We'll explore the subtle shifts, the unspoken realizations, and the quiet power of a man who moves with purpose and peace. A man who, like the Stoics taught, knows that his value isn't defined by who stays, but by how he stays true to himself. Let's dive in. Number 1. Her silence isn't absence. Even when she stops reaching out, it doesn't mean you're off her mind. Often, the more she tries to avoid you outwardly, the louder your presence echoes internally. A Stoic man doesn't chase silence. He lets it reveal the truth. Think about it. If she truly didn't care, she wouldn't need to stay silent. Indifference doesn't require strategy. But silence? That takes effort. That's often a sign of emotional conflict, not clarity. She might mute your stories, delete your chat, or avoid mutual places. But those are not acts of detachment. They're signs that she still feels something. Because if she had truly moved on, your existence wouldn't feel so loud inside her. This is where your mindset matters. A man grounded in Stoic discipline doesn't interpret silence as rejection. He sees it as space. Space for her to wrestle with her own emotions. Space for him to stay rooted in self-respect. He doesn't break his peace to decode mixed signals. He simply observes and lets time reveal what words won't. And here's the paradox. Your absence, handled with quiet strength, becomes a presence she can't ignore. Not because you're trying to be remembered, but because you're not trying at all. The moment she realizes you're not chasing is the moment her silence starts to speak. So the next time you hear nothing, don't panic. Don't press. Just listen. Because sometimes her silence isn't the end. It's the beginning of her own internal storm. And a Stoic man knows. Storms reveal what calm waters often hide. Before we move on, I want you to sit with that for a moment. Let it sink in. Because silence is never just silence when emotions still linger beneath the surface. If this part resonated with you, share your thoughts in the comments. How have you learned to interpret silence differently? Or if you're keeping it simple, just write, "I no longer chase silence. I understand it." Your story might help someone else find clarity in the noise. Let's keep going. Number 2. Memory is a subtle enemy. She might scroll through photos or revisit songs that remind her of you, quietly, secretly. Nostalgia doesn't need permission. It sneaks in during the silence, slips through when she least expects it. And while she may act like she's moved on, memory has its own agenda. It doesn't shout, it whispers. It plays that one song at the wrong time. It flashes a photo when she's finally feeling okay. It's not about missing the relationship. It's about missing the feeling she had with you. For the man who has mastered his emotions, this is a quiet but powerful reminder. You leave behind more than just moments. You leave meaning, and meaning lingers. Epictetus once said, "It's not things themselves that disturb us, but our opinions about them." The same applies to memories. What haunts her isn't what happened. It's how she interpreted it. It's the safety in your voice, the steadiness in your presence, the way you didn't flinch when she tested your limits. And here's the catch. While she's busy convincing herself she's over you, her memories are telling a different story. They don't fade just because she wants them to. In fact, the more she tries to suppress them, the louder they echo in the background. That's the subtle power of your presence. It imprints, not just impresses. So don't mistake her silence for indifference. Memory is working against her pride. And a Stoic man knows better than to chase ghosts or fight for closure. He simply continues forward, grounded, intentional, unshaken. Because he knows this: when you become a calm in someone's storm, you're never truly forgotten. Number 3. Your calm created contrast. In a world full of chaos, your centered presence stood out. Now, in your absence, she compares every man's noise to your peace. A Stoic doesn't try to be unforgettable. He simply is, by being grounded in who he is. And that's exactly what happened with you. You weren't loud. You weren't dramatic. You didn't play games or try to impress her with flash. You just were. Steady, present, composed. You brought clarity when everything else was confusion. At the time, maybe she didn't realize what she had. Your calm felt too simple, too easy, too quiet in a world addicted to intensity. But now, that stillness echoes louder than anything. She finds herself with people who talk more but say less. Men who are reactive, easily rattled, chasing validation, while you walked away with your dignity intact. And in that silence, in that detachment, something began to shift. See, the Stoics teach that true power is internal. It's not in control over others. It's in mastery over self. You didn't stay calm to prove a point. You stayed calm because that's who you've become. That contrast, that deep, unshakable energy you carried, isn't something you can fake. And now, it lives in her memory. Not as a regret, but as a benchmark. A quiet reminder of what true strength looks like. You didn't compete. You didn't chase. You didn't try to win her back. And that's why your presence, now gone, keeps showing up in her comparisons. When the noise around her becomes too much, she remembers your silence. When the drama overwhelms her, she remembers your patience. You didn't need to raise your voice to be remembered. You just had to be real. That's the quiet impact of a grounded man. The contrast you created wasn't just emotional. It was spiritual. And once a woman experiences that, everything else feels lesser. So if you're wondering whether your presence mattered, trust me, it did. It still does. And it will, long after others fade. Because peace, real peace, doesn't beg to be noticed. It simply cannot be forgotten. Number 4. She still wonders, what if? Even if she was the one who left, she questions it more than she'll admit. Doubt creeps in late at night, when the noise quiets, when the notifications stop, when the faces around her blur into people who simply aren't you. Maybe she sees someone who looks like you in a crowd. Maybe a song you both loved plays while she's driving. Or maybe she opens her old messages just to feel something familiar. And in that stillness, the question floats back into her mind like a whisper she can't ignore. What if I stayed? What if I didn't push him away? What if he really was the one? But here's the contrast. You don't live in what if. That's not where peace is found. You live in what's next. Because, while she replays memories, you've been building momentum. While she wonders if she made the right decision, you've become the man who doesn't need to look back for validation. A Stoic understands this deeply. The past can teach, but it cannot define. Regret may knock, but it doesn't get to live in your house. You see, what if is the anchor of those who fear growth. It's the echo of hesitation. But when a man embraces what's next, he walks forward with a calm heart and clear mind. That's why she feels your absence more than she expected, because you've stopped lingering in the shadow of the past. You've chosen your path with intention, not confusion. And in her quiet moments, that realization lingers. It stings. Because you didn't just move on, you evolved. Not out of spite, but out of strength. You became the kind of man who doesn't chase what was because he's too busy becoming what will be. So now I want you to pause for a moment and reflect. Are you still dwelling in the what if, or have you stepped fully into what's next? This is where the real shift happens, not just in how she sees you, but in how you see yourself. If this part of the message hit something real inside you, drop a comment and share your thoughts. Or just leave this in the comments to remind yourself and inspire someone else. I don't live in what if. I walk in what's next. Your growth might be exactly the reflection someone else needs today. Number 5. Your detachment has power. She expected you to react, to plead, to fight. But your emotional discipline? That shook her. She thinks of you because you responded with calm, not chaos. And that silence is louder than any argument could ever be. You didn't chase closure. You didn't beg for clarity. You chose something far more powerful: self-respect. And that choice speaks volumes, especially to someone who expected to see you crumble. There's something magnetic about a man who doesn't flinch when emotions run high. Someone who doesn't need to prove his worth with words or reactions. That's when the dynamic shifts. She notices the change. She starts to question her assumptions. And that's the irony. Your lack of reaction becomes the reaction. Your absence becomes a presence she can't ignore. This isn't about playing games. It's about mastering your inner world so the outer world doesn't control you. A Stoic doesn't run from emotion, but he doesn't let it dictate his actions either. He understands that true strength is found in restraint. Just like Marcus Aurelius wrote, "You have power over your mind, not outside events." Realize this, and you will find strength. So, yes, when you didn't lash out, when you didn't chase, when you let go with dignity, she felt that. And maybe for the first time, she saw you, not as the man who once needed her approval, but as the man who doesn't need to be chosen to feel complete. That kind of detachment doesn't come from apathy. It comes from growth, from knowing your peace matters more than proving a point. And now, while she wrestles with the silence you left behind, you're already focused on what's next. You didn't walk away in bitterness. You walked forward in power. Number 6. Her ego blocks her heart. She may miss you deeply, but refuses to show it because pride stands guard. While she wrestles with that internal war, you've already made peace with yourself. That's what Stoics do. They don't beg for feelings to return. They let clarity lead. See, you've reached a place she hasn't yet. A place where your emotions don't control your actions. Where your worth isn't tied to someone else's recognition. Her heart might still whisper your name in quiet moments, but her ego, it screams louder. It tells her, don't be the first to reach out. It convinces her that vulnerability is weakness, not realizing that what truly takes strength is honesty. You'll notice it in small ways. Maybe she watches your stories, but never likes. Maybe she asks about you through others, but won't text you herself. Maybe you sense her presence around your life, yet she acts like you're invisible. That's not indifference. It's her ego trying to protect her heart by pretending it feels nothing. But the more she denies what she feels, the more it eats at her quietly. Pride might win the silence, but it never brings peace. And here's where you stand out. You didn't fold under the pressure to chase. You didn't react impulsively or drown in confusion. Like a Stoic, you chose stillness over noise. Marcus Aurelius wrote, "If it's not right, don't do it. If it's not true, don't say it." That's the mindset you've adopted. You don't chase illusions, you live in truth. And the truth is, if her ego is more important than the connection, then you're better off with your peace than with her pride. So, while her heart quietly aches behind the wall of her ego, you've already moved forward. Not because you stopped caring, but because you started caring about yourself more. That's the quiet power of a man who refuses to fight for what refuses to be honest. Number 7, you trigger her reflection. Your growth reminds her of what she lost. Every improvement you make, physically, emotionally, mentally, becomes a mirror she didn't ask for. But the Stoic doesn't glow to provoke envy. He evolves because growth is who he is. And yet, make no mistake, your evolution does affect her. Not because you're throwing it in her face, but because it's impossible to ignore. She sees the calm in your eyes now, the strength in your silence, the focus in your posture. You're not reaching for her anymore. You're reaching for better. That's where the reflection begins. She starts to wonder, did I give up too soon? Was I too blind to see who he could become? And that quiet echo of regret? It's not your responsibility to resolve. It's hers to wrestle with. You see, when you stop chasing and start building, you become the proof of everything she claimed she wanted, but never stayed long enough to nurture. A Stoic man doesn't grow out of revenge. He doesn't post just to be seen. He improves because he refuses to stay stagnant. He's led by virtue, not validation. And ironically, that's exactly what pulls her mind back to you. The way you didn't break, the way you didn't beg, the way you turned pain into purpose without needing an audience. So now, every time she scrolls and sees you living with clarity, every time she hears about you glowing differently, it stirs something inside her. Reflection. Not just on who you are, but on who she wasn't ready to become beside you. Let her sit with that. Not to punish her, but because your journey is no longer about convincing anyone of your worth. It's about honoring it. And now, I want to hear from you. Has your growth ever triggered reflection in someone who once overlooked you? Have you felt the shift when you stopped chasing and started choosing yourself? Drop your thoughts in the comments, or if you're keeping it simple, just write, "I grow in silence, not for show." Your story might resonate with someone who needs to hear it. Let's move forward. Number 8. She notices the void you left. It's in the little things. How you listened without judgment. How you brought stability without control. Now that it's gone, she can't unfeel it. A man anchored in virtue doesn't need to prove value. His absence proves it for him. And that's the part she never expected. See, in the moment, she might have taken it for granted. She might have thought your calm was indifference, your silence a lack of care. But now that you're not there to hold space for her emotions, to bring presence without pressure, she feels the weight of that void. She scrolls through her phone and doesn't find your name lighting up her screen anymore. She walks into places that used to feel familiar, where your presence brought comfort, and now they feel colder. Not because you made everything perfect, but because you made everything feel safe. That's the kind of absence that echoes. And here's the Stoic truth. When a man lives by principle, by patience, by purpose, his energy lingers longer than his presence. You weren't trying to impress her. You weren't chasing validation. You were simply being, a man rooted in self-respect, clarity, and composure. And now that you're no longer there, her world feels just a little more chaotic. Not because she's weak, but because you brought something rare, a sense of grounded peace. That void? It's not loud or dramatic. It's subtle. It shows up in moments of reflection, in conversations where no one listens like you did, in the realization that while others may entertain, they don't truly see her the way you once did. So if you're wondering whether she notices your absence, the answer is yes. Not in the way she might admit out loud, but in how she compares every present moment to what she used to have with you. A Stoic doesn't need to announce his departure. He just lives in a way that makes his presence impossible to replace. Number 9. Her friends see it before she does. They notice how her tone changes when your name comes up, how she lingers too long on your profile, how she scrolls back to old photos, pretending she's just browsing. But they can see through the excuse. They hear the hesitation in her voice when someone asks, "Are you really over him?" She says yes, but it sounds more like a question than an answer. Her friends aren't fooled, not by the silence, not by the staged smiles. They see the gap you left, even if she's too proud or too guarded to admit it. Here's the thing. When you've made a genuine impact on someone, through your presence, your patience, your principles, it lingers in ways that can't be hidden. Stoicism teaches that you don't need to chase validation or demand acknowledgement. You simply remain grounded in your truth, knowing that your presence was real and therefore its absence must be felt. She may not talk about you directly, but her friends, they start to pick up the trail. They notice how no new guy seems to measure up, how she compares, even subconsciously, how she tries to act indifferent, but your name still pulls something out of her. That's the quiet power of being a man of depth, one who leads with calm, not chaos, one who knows his worth and doesn't need to perform for attention. You never needed her to admit it out loud. That's the beauty of this kind of presence. It echoes, even when no one speaks it. And eventually, those echoes become too loud to ignore. Not just for her friends, but for her too. Number 10. She misses being understood. You didn't just hear her. You understood her. That emotional connection isn't easy to replace. While she hides behind indifference, inside she craves that depth again. But a man with inner strength never gives it twice to someone who took it for granted. You saw beyond her words, didn't you? You noticed the hesitation in her voice when she said she was fine, the way she looked away when she needed reassurance but didn't know how to ask for it. You didn't just nod when she opened up. You absorbed what she said, made space for her truth, and held it without judgment. That's rare, and she knows it now. Maybe she's surrounded by people who reply quickly, but never really listen. Maybe she laughs in conversations where she doesn't feel safe to be vulnerable. There's a difference between being heard and being understood, and now she feels that difference like an ache. She might have walked away thinking she could find better or simpler or more exciting. But deep down, what she truly misses is the way you saw her without her needing to explain herself. A Stoic man doesn't offer that kind of presence casually. He knows his understanding is a gift, one rooted in self-awareness, patience, and genuine attention. And when that gift is mishandled, he doesn't offer it again to prove his worth. He honors it by stepping back, by preserving his peace, by living with dignity. Not out of bitterness, but because wisdom teaches him this. Not everyone is ready to be understood. Some only realize the value of it after it's gone. And now, She feels that loss in moments she'll never admit. In a conversation that feels shallow. In a message that doesn't land. In a night when she wishes someone just got her the way you did. But you've already moved with grace into your next chapter. Because the man who once understood her deeply now understands himself even more. And that realization? It lingers in the quiet places she can't escape. Now, I want to hear from you. Have you ever experienced this kind of unspoken connection with someone? Or felt the sting of being taken for granted when all you offered was your presence and understanding? Drop your thoughts in the comments, or if you'd rather keep it simple, just write, "I no longer explain. I understand," and move on. Your story might help another man realize he's not alone in this. Let's keep this conversation real, honest, and grounded, just like the man you're becoming. Now, let's move forward. Number 11. You were the anchor in her storm. She remembers the way you stayed composed, especially when things got messy. You were the eye in her emotional storm, and now she feels the chaos without you. A Stoic man doesn't become someone's peace by force. He is peace, and that's why she can't stop thinking. When everything around her felt uncertain, when her emotions pulled her in 100 directions, you didn't match her chaos. You didn't raise your voice. You didn't lose your ground. You didn't try to fix her, nor did you crumble trying to please her. Instead, you stood steady, calm, unshaken. And that became something rare to her. In a world that often reacts without thinking, you responded with clarity. You listened when others judged. You gave her space to feel without drowning in her emotion yourself. That's what it means to be an anchor, not to control the storm, but to hold firm when it hits. Now that you're gone, the difference is sharp. Other men may say the right things, may even show excitement or passion, but they don't bring peace. They don't bring that grounding energy you once did. And whether she admits it or not, that contrast haunts her, especially when life feels heavy, especially when she catches herself wishing someone would just get her without needing her to explain. Stoicism teaches us that our virtue, our inner stillness, must not depend on the behavior of others. And that's exactly what she experienced through you. You were centered not because of her, but in spite of the storm she brought. That kind of presence lingers. It stays in her memory during sleepless nights, in the silence after arguments with others, in the weight of her own restlessness. You didn't need attention. You didn't chase her emotions. You simply were. And in that being, you gave her something she didn't know she needed. A man who led with quiet strength. And now that you're no longer there, she's not just missing you. She's missing the man who made the storm feel survivable. Tell me, have you ever had someone realize your value only after your absence? So here's the truth, brother. You didn't need to shout to be remembered. You didn't need drama, chaos, or manipulation to leave your mark. You simply showed up as a grounded man, steady, intentional, and present. And that kind of energy doesn't fade. It lingers. It echoes in her quiet moments. It's felt in the spaces where noise used to distract her from what she truly needed. What this journey has shown us, through silence, through memory, through contrast, is that the Stoic man doesn't become unforgettable by chasing approval. He becomes unforgettable by mastering himself, by holding his peace when tested, by walking away without bitterness, and by growing, not for attention, but because evolution is his nature. Maybe she tells the world she's over it. Maybe she's convinced herself too. But that deep part of her, the one that still remembers the way you made her feel safe, seen, and steady, that part doesn't lie. So let this be your reminder. You don't need to prove your value. Just keep living with clarity, calm, and conviction. Because in the end, the man who walks away with dignity leaves behind something far more powerful than words. He leaves meaning. If this message spoke to something inside you, let's keep the conversation going. Drop your thoughts in the comments. Share your experience, your reflection, or just leave this in the comments. I don't chase, I carry presence. Because someone out there might read your words and realize they're not alone in this path. If you found value in this video, give it a like. It helps more than you know. And make sure to check out the videos on screen. Each one dives deeper into becoming the kind of man who doesn't just attract respect, but lives in a way that demands it without saying a word. Until next time, stay grounded, stay strong, and always choose peace over performance.